You're listening to the podcast for all of the news, notes, and breakdowns for your Ohio State Buckeyes. This is Sons of the Shoe with Nick Wilson and Spencer German.
Sons of the Shoe is back. It's Spencer German with you. No Nick Wilson once again this week. He should be back here hopefully next week. We're working on a guest for the show. It's still kind of in the works, so we'll have some good stuff still coming for you down the pike. But it's been a little bit of a hiatus here, and there's a ton of stuff to talk about. For being, still several weeks out from the start of the Buckeyes summer training camp and the lead up to the season, and we really start to feel a sense of football being in the air. We were given a ton of gift wrapped, if you will, a ton of storylines and a ton of things to touch on with you. So I implore you to like, follow, subscribe, comment, whatever you want to do to the Sons of the Shoe podcast. You can find it wherever you get your podcast in the Odyssey app. Did I mention Apple Podcasts? I don't think I mentioned Apple Podcasts, but I'll mention it again. Apple Podcasts. It's a good place to find podcasts. And, of course, the 92 to the Fan YouTube channel. If you prefer watching the show, seeing my ugly mug, you can do it there. You can comment, and we try to interact with you guys through that comment section as well. But good to be back. Excited to be here. And listen, there's a bunch of things I want to get to. The fact that the Buckeyes are trying Caleb Downs out at running back, which has me very, very intrigued. We'll get to that coming up. We'll get to what was dubbed by some rat poison from Urban Meyer. But the first thing that I want to get to is this story that came out earlier in the week after the news of Erin Dunston, who was the assistant athletic director of football recruiting, left the program to go be, like Tony Alford, a Benedict Arnold, or a Benedict Alford, as we called Tony Alford, and join the Michigan Wolverines staff. She is going there to take over as the director of operations. And listen, I understand when there's an opportunity to advance up in any field, whether it's football, whether it's in the real world, a working, normal, blue-collar, 9-to-5 job, whatever it might be, you usually applaud the person, congratulate them, pat them on the butt, and send them on their way. That's all fine and good. Maybe not pat them on the butt, pat them on the back. Pat them on the butt might get you in a meeting with HR, but on the back, yeah, congratulate them. That's we'll keep it. We'll keep the touching to that extent. But no, I understand why that's kind of the result, that what people are looking for here. But the story that I'm referring to off of this departure from Erin Dunston is the fact that there was some rumors going around and some scuttlebutt that Ryan Day had apparently scolded and yelled at Erin on her way out, and basically turned this into like a yelling fest of, I can't believe you're leaving us and you're doing us like this and blah, 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 blah. Now, listen, I understand the jokes that came out of this. There was a lot of, classic Ryan Day likes to yell at old men and women and all these different things. And listen, he's got to wear that. He did the Lou Holtz thing. That's going to haunt him until the day he dies. I use that meme. Other people use that meme. Or maybe not the day he dies, but at least till he's maybe as long as he's coaching, we'll say that whole memeable moment is going to follow him. But I understand the low-hanging fruit jokes that come from this. And I understand on some level why it's a bad look to many, especially outside of Columbus, outside of Ohio State. But I think I think the reason that's kind of the direction that the story has taken from those who saw this or picked this up is the fact that it was him allegedly screaming and scolding a female employee and not a male employee. And I'm not saying that it's okay to yell at anybody, male, female, otherwise. But if this was if this came out when Tony Alford had left, I don't think anybody would care. I don't think anybody would bat an eye. They'd be like, that's the nature of the business. You go to my rival, I'm not going to be happy about it. And I think what's missing, the context of all this in trying to get into Ryan Day's head as to why he would maybe react the way that's been rumored that he acted, is the fact that Erin Dunston was the assistant athletic director of football recruiting. Like, she oversaw the planning of visits getting kids to come in. And I'm not saying like the recruiting is going to – it seems like by all accounts Ohio State's recruiting is doing just fine, even in her departure. But this time of year is a key one for her job. And a couple weeks, like she had to know for some time that she was going through this interview process and exploring an opportunity at Michigan. It wasn't like it just popped up out of nowhere. And then one day she wakes up and it's like, hey, we want you to come here. And then she walks into the office and says, hey, I got this great opportunity. I'm actually going to leave and go to Michigan. Like, no. We know how these things go. They take time. I worked at a college and university. I worked in college athletics. The process to hire people isn't just some overnight thing. Like, it takes time. HR likes to drag their feet with this type of stuff. So there's no way she didn't have some sort of heads up on this. And I understand why you're not going to tell your current employer that it's happening, right? But it's the fact that like this sort of comes out of nowhere. She springs in on Ryan Day at this time of year where there could have at least been some sort of headway made in understanding, hey, listen, I'm considering another opportunity, and put yourself in a position to be ready for my departure at a key time of year for recruiting right now, when Ryan Day doesn't have to be out there in the field coaching his players. And then on top of that, it's like she was posting pictures sitting in Ohio State's recruiting photo shoot backdrop, acting like she's loving life, talking about, oh yeah, here's another great year of recruiting. We're having a great recruiting season, all this different stuff. I just don't know how people expected him to react. I understand, like, yeah, you want everybody to do the wholesome, again, pat him on the back and say, congratulations, good luck to you. But this is college football. And this is the most competitive environment you can possibly dream up in college, in the pros, like professional sports. It's people who are competitive. It's coaches who a lot of times we describe them as being crazy. Like, and this person is leaving to go to your biggest rival. And how do we know he didn't react that way when Tony Alford told him the news? Like, I know in the press conference when he talked about it, he just kind of tried to downplay it because that's the thing you're going to say publicly. But behind closed doors, how do we know he wasn't pissed off about it? I'm sure he was, because anytime you lose a coach, particularly to your biggest rival that's now beaten you 3 years in a row, that has got to irk him and keep him up at night so much that when it's presented to him and it's on his desk in front of him, of course he's going to lose his cool. Of course he's going to lose his cool. We can't walk the walk of, man, we hate this team and all they stand for and everybody who's a part of them, and then be upset that Ryan Day yelled at someone for joining that team staff just because she's a woman and it seems like he's being a little too harsh. Like, no. If she's in this business, I'm assuming she knows what to expect. She knows that people are highly competitive and that she knew this could have been the outcome from telling Ryan Day, hey, I'm leaving your program as the AD, assistant AD of your recruiting and everything that we're doing right now during the summer months. I'm leaving, and I'm not just leaving to go like to get a better job at, say, I don't know, like an SEC school, or start my own path overseeing with a higher up position at a MAC school and sort of go in a different direction. No. She's going to the one team that should irritate anybody who cares about this program, anybody who's a fan of this team. That is the one team that if somebody leaves as a coach, as a recruiting coordinator, as a director of operations, as a player, no, we ain't standing for that. This is what we want out of this rivalry. We want people to care. Ryan Day has gotten so criticized over his since he's taken over the program for sort of talking the talk on Michigan, but not necessarily walking the walk on Michigan. And I think it took everything we saw this past year, or really the past 3 years, of losing to Michigan. The one year you almost had the consolation prize of, hey, we lost to Michigan, but we could have beat Georgia, gone on and won a national championship, and people that would have softened the blow at least a little bit. But you still lost to Michigan 3 straight years. And now to put the cherry on top of it all, Michigan goes out and they win the national championship this past year. And now you got to live with that. You got to sleep with that at your doorstep every single night, knowing that they went out and did the thing that you've been trying to do since you last won it in 2014. Like, that can't sit well with him when he's getting criticized from every angle and he knows the pressure's on. And it's why he's gone out and the program has gone out, and they made a point in building this team that everybody's calling a super team. I mean, even Urban Meyer had some comments about it, which, like I said, we'll get to, potentially being the best roster of the last decade or more or beyond. Like they have stockpiled so much talent on this team this offseason for one reason. Yes, to win a national championship, but it's because they're sick and tired. And Ryan Day was sick and tired of losing to Michigan. So he was like, hey, we're doubling down on everything. We're bringing in another running back to complement our great running back we already have. We're building the best secondary in the country. We're going out and getting Caleb Downs plucking him from Alabama. We're going to the transfer portal. We're bringing in another great recruiting class. We're trying to convince everybody to come back by ramping up our NIL dollars. We're doing everything we can to build a super team that can finally take down Michigan, because I ain't doing this anymore. And so all of that, the last 3 years have built to this moment where Ryan Day cares so much that he has put his blood, sweat, and tears this offseason into building a team that we legitimately are sitting here saying should be the odds-on favorite to win a championship, aside from maybe Georgia, and has a chance to go do that, but also has a chance to beat Michigan and get back to the prominence that we've been talking about. He knows the pressure's on. He finally is at a point where he's like, listen, I'm taking this seriously. I ain't fucking around anymore. And we're going to be mad at him because he's upset that somebody's now leaving to go join that program. Like, do you want him to care or do you not want him to care? So in a lot of ways, I understand why it's a bad look. I'm not saying he should be yelling at women, yelling at old men, whatever. And people are going to make fun of him for it. Like I said, he's going to have to wear that. He's going to have to wear the fact that people view him in this way, that he gets called the nicknames of like crying Ryan Day and all this different stuff, whatever. I'm guessing he doesn't necessarily lose sleep at night over that stuff because he's more worried about the pressures of fulfilling this prophecy of what Ohio State football is supposed to be, and realizing and finally getting this program back to the prominence that we're expecting, because his job and his ass is on the line. So I'm guessing that's more of the forefront of his mind than the conversation, whatever it might have been, however aggressive it might have been in terms of verbally aggressive it could have been with Erin Dunston. I think he's more worried about the big picture here. And I want my coach in a rivalry that we're supposed to day in and day out live and breathe and wake up and I mean, Nick literally hosts a show at 92 to the Fan where every day they have a line in there that said, when they do a little drop about Michigan, and they say Michigan still sucks with Dustin Fox, former Ohio State Buckeye. Like, dude, that's how it's supposed to be. I want my coach fiery, no matter who it is. If they're going to come to his office and say, hey, I'm leaving the program to go to Michigan, this is how we should want our coach to react. We should want him to react and be so mad that he's now going to go do that thing he promised several seasons ago where he's going to try to hang 100 on them next season. So if this is just a little extra motivation, a little extra nugget that's getting thrown in, and they're saying, hey, a little more fuel to the fire on Ryan Day trying to topple Michigan and go win a national championship, guess what? I'll live with it. Because this is what we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for him to care so much that he's this upset about it and that he's showing the emotion. And maybe it's behind closed doors and he's trying to keep his cool at his press conferences and things like that. Fine. But I don't see what the problem is, other than the fact that, yes, he's yelling at a woman who got a job and is leaving, and normally you wouldn't handle it that way. But if this is going to add more fuel to the fire, if this is going to make Ryan Day care just even a little bit more, an ounce more about that game, that he's going to try to whoop their ass next year, sign me up for that. So I actually think the opposite. I don't know how else we should have expected him to react if this is true. Again, it's all alleged that he was in this yelling match or in this had this verbally aggressive conversation when Erin Dunston told him she was leaving and had to be escorted out by security, I think was the other part of this rumor. I don't know how else. Like, how else would you want your coach to react in that situation when it's your biggest rival? If she was going to Purdue, okay, fine. Give her the hey, thank you for everything. Give her the hug. Tell her good luck to you. But Michigan, no. We draw a line in the sand. We dig our feet in. when it comes to that program. And Nick and I said the same thing about Tony Alford. We were calling him Benedict Alford on this show because we believed wholeheartedly that it's the traitorous thing to do to go to that team of all teams. And if we're going to frown upon it for Tony Alford, if we're going to frown upon it for anybody else that would pull a move like this, then I'm going to frown upon it when it's Erin Dunston, even if it meant Ryan Day got into a little bit of a screaming match with her. Whatever. Such is life in college football, a competitive business where these coaches are supposed to care, where we want our coaches to care, and where we want the teams to care. Ryan Day cares. And that's been a culmination of the last 3 years, been a culmination of this offseason. He's telling you he cares so much about beating Michigan this year that he's willing to yell at somebody on their way out the door and get him escorted out by security to prove that he's had enough of that program and he's not taking people just jumping ship to go join them. Can't beat him, join them? No. We're going to prove that wrong this year and we're going to beat him. That's the way I'm taking it. How are you taking it? Do you have a problem if Ryan Day really did, and again, it's all just alleged and rumors and internet scuttlebutt, which is always fun to talk about. Are you upset that Ryan Day maybe handled Erin Dunston's departure in this way? I love it. I think it's great that he's this fiery about this matchup, and it's a testament to how much he cares. And that's all I've ever wanted from Ryan Day. Let's take a break. When we get back, Urban Meyer dropping what Nick Saban would label as rat poison about the program he once coached. Talk about traitors. Well, we'll get to that coming up next here on Sons of the Shoe.